when peace is mistaken for weakness. In the opening episode of Unlocked, a jail experiment, viewers are invited to watch what happens when a jail removes many of its usual controls and allows inmates a degree of self-governance. The framing is telling. The episode is titled Dangerous Politics. Dangerous to whom? That question turns out to be the heart of the experiment, though not in the way the show seems to intend. One of the first patterns to emerge is familiar. Even when external authority is relaxed, hierarchy quickly reforms. A leader appears. Rules are asserted. Someone begins managing behavior. This is often cited as evidence that human beings require control, that without it, chaos is inevitable. But the experiment suggests something subtler and more unsettling. What emerges is not proof of humanity's need for authority. It is evidence of humanity's fear of peace. Across cultures and institutions, people consistently resist being ordered by others, by guards, parents, bosses, and systems. And yet those same people often embrace the language of obedience when it is abstracted. Obedience to God, to commandments, to doctrine, to ideology. The contradiction is revealing. What is rejected in human form is often projected upward into divine or moral authority. The resentment toward control is not resolved. It is displaced. Authority becomes sacred rather than questioned. Peace is commonly framed as something that must be protected. Protect your peace has become a modern mantra. But protection implies threat, and threat implies competition. Peace that needs defending is not peace. It is a truce maintained by vigilance. This is why peace is often dismissed as weak. If peace is fragile, then strength must lie in control. But the reverse may be true. What calls itself strength, constant monitoring, enforcement, coercion, is often a confession of fear. It is exhausting precisely because it does not trust what it claims to preserve. Before the experiment begins, the sheriff gathers his staff and listens to their concerns. Most objections are rooted in fear. What if it fails? What if it escalates? What if people get hurt? Then the sheriff says something quietly radical. We don't know. We've never tried this before. This is not naivete. It is clarity. He contrasts the unknown with what is known. Decades of lockdowns, isolation, and coercion whose failures are well documented. In other words, we know control doesn't work. We don't know what happens if we trust peace. And that admission, not the unlocked doors, is the true experiment. Modern institutions do not test peace. They test compliance. They test deterrence. They test fear. Peace, by contrast, cannot be measured quickly. It cannot be enforced. It cannot be guaranteed, which makes it intolerable to systems built on certainty and control. So peace is discussed, idealized, and preached, but it is rarely trusted. The most important realization of the episode is this: the jail is not the building. Unlocked doors do not free minds. Structures removed do not dissolve fear. Unless the underlying belief that safety requires coercion is questioned, the same thought system walks out of the gate that walked in. This is why control recreates itself even when it is supposedly abandoned. Not because people are irredeemable, but because fear has never been addressed at its source. If peace were truly trusted, coercion would be unnecessary. That single idea destabilizes far more than a jail experiment. It challenges how authority, governance, religion, education, and power itself are understood. Perhaps Dangerous Politics is the right title after all, just not for the reasons implied. What is dangerous is not peace. What is dangerous is realizing how little it has ever been trusted. Tonight's experiment did not unlock a jail. It unlocked a belief. The belief that peace is fragile. that without rules, walls, and watchful eyes, something terrible will happen. And so the moment the doors opened, fear rushed in to replace the guards. Leaders emerged. Orders were given. Control reassembled itself, not because chaos arrived, but because peace was never trusted to stay. You see, peace has an unfortunate reputation. It's mistaken for weakness by minds trained to survive, defend, and dominate. Strength, we're told, must be loud, firm, and unyielding. Yet the louder the strength, the clearer the fear behind it. Because real peace does not need to shout. It does not need to threaten. It does not need to be protected. The most honest words spoken in this experiment came before it even began. "We don't know," said the man in charge. A rare confession in a world addicted to certainty. For decades we have tried locks, isolation, punishment, and force. We know exactly where those roads lead. What we don't know is what happens when fear is no longer appointed as warden. When peace is not managed, enforced, or supervised, but simply allowed. Perhaps that is why this experiment feels so dangerous. Not because people cannot be trusted, but because peace can. And that is a risk few institutions, and even fewer minds, have ever been willing to take. Tonight's lesson comes from a place with bars and gates, but it does not belong there. Because the real jail has never been a building. It has always been the belief that safety requires control. A belief now entering the Twilight Zone.